4 or 5 years ago, it was easy to take an ad account and just make money. Now it requires a completely different CRO framework. Let's say the product's $997. We'll go on the webinar and we'll be like, it's $2,000, but on this webinar, it's $997 now and then $997 when you pay X amount of money. If you just get me the leads, I'll close them. Do not sell them. If you want to give me equity, then pay me 50 grand first and then we'll talk about it.
Jason, for the audience, give people context on what's the main offer you have and then what's the main type of clients you work with.
We run ads for coaches, consultants, service providers, and e-com stores. Most of the time when we're running, it's either going to be low ticket product funnels, webinar funnels, VSL to application, just like standard book call funnels with an appointment setter. And then with e-com stores, it's mostly beauty, home decor, high ticket e-com.
Okay. And then I'm curious, what level of service do you do? Meaning some ad agencies, I would say, only run the ads. Some will do more full stack where it's we'll do the ads, we'll do the copy, we'll do the videos. It's almost A to Z. So to what extent do you guys do that?
Yeah. So we saw that over the last 3 years. This, dude, people don't like advertising companies. So we had to transition our whole entire product ladder. So most
more full stack.
Yeah. We have a whole team that does offer creation, and then we have copy, and then we have landing pages, and then we have email and SMS. We have a whole
you guys even will have that kind of written out too.
Yeah. We have a sales recruiting part that does the appointment setters and closers, but we don't sell it as much because most people don't they always want to have the interviews. They have this weird control mechanism around their closer.
Right.
So we just had some friction with that. And then also we do websites, store builds,
everything.
Yeah, I mean, dude, we just saw that when people came in 3 years ago and they just wanted ads ran, and we just took over their campaigns. Obviously it was atrocious because we weren't looking at everything else. Their headline was trash, their conversion rates were bad, and most business owners didn't think that because you've been running ads for years. Dude, 4 or 5 years ago, it was easy to take an ad account and just make money. Right. And now it requires a completely different CRO framework.
Yeah.
So
well, and at least in my opinion, you tell me, but what I found is that it's interesting. A lot of times when people want someone to run the ads, they are coming to you thinking that's the reason they're not being successful. And it's it's all these other shit that you suck at.
Yeah.
My question is this is, I've been doing this a long time. Coaching consultants, I personally feel are harder to work with on average because they're in all different places, right? So you got a guy who's got a fitness offer and then he's at 0 and then this one's at a 50 and it's all these other things. It's not as linear usually as an e-com store. So I'm assuming you prefer e-com stores versus a coaching client or is 80-20 e-com to coaching clients or what's that look like?
It's interesting the way that we made it more efficient for us was we actually will push. And I'd love to get your feedback on this, but we actually take coaches who are from 0, and if they're selling anything from a low ticket $497 to a $2K, we'll actually make them run a webinar to see if the offer actually converts well, on cold traffic.
Wow.
Because if you can't sell one to many, you're not going to get someone on a sales call to pay, 5 to 10K for it.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, we'll just run a webinar.
Don't you feel that's harder though? I feel like running a webinar to a 2K offer is harder than running a call funnel to a 5K or a 10K.
It depends on the pricing of it, but what we will say is for example, let's say the product's $997. We'll go on the webinar and we'll be like, hey, listen, it's $2,000, but on this webinar, it's $997 now and then $997 when you pay X amount of money. So technically everything after the first payment was just a tip. So we make it seem as hey, we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
So we just played the pay now and then pay after approach. And then other ones we'll do a payment plan on it, but the offer has to obviously be good.
Yeah.
So I've just done a lot of webinars. I was were the space I came from. And then, yeah, I mean, dude, it's harder with webinars too, because some people don't want to put their Zoom cameras on and some people aren't interactive in the chat. So it's but the thing with the webinars is that we take the webinars and we'll do where we put a phone number on the slides and we have them text a certain word to the phone number. Then their setter will warm them up or they're solopreneurs. So they do it. And then, we'll take the webinar leads and then we'll retarget them to the book call funnel.
Right.
So wherever they go, we're trying to scoop them up, wherever they are.
You probably know Ashton Shanks and Eddie and Ash. I actually worked with Ashton way back in the day. This was traffic and funnels days. And then he started doing his own agency and doing that. But I mean, it just seems much more linear. and it seems much easier, which ultimately like those are usually easier customers to get results for. In the coaching space, what I found, and I'm curious on your take with your company, is do your media buyers, at least with coaches, I feel they have to be more full stack marketers. They cannot just be, oh yeah, I'm going to push buttons. They have to actually like, okay, here's the funnel. Here's what needs to be fixed. They have to have more of that approach. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Like we have marketing leads who take over the coaches and consultants who have like a hybrid experience. The media buyers just sit in triple whale and high roast and just run e-com.
Yeah. Okay. So that's part of why I actually feel, the coaching space is more difficult to get results for, just because like the offer could suck, and then they have to be good at more things. And the more things someone has to be good at, there's more failure rate, and more failure rate means people just usually get upset or they blame, or it's just harder to scale because end of the day, you're not getting the same consistent result. And it's not always you. I mean, sometimes, right. It's like, it's not always you. It's just the fact like it's the person, or they're not that good or whatever. And so that, I've been in that space for a long time. What would you say is the most common challenges your team deals with on a daily basis with running an agency?
Getting the clients to understand that data is the most important thing. They get way too emotional about like spending the money on ads. Right. And they're like, I want higher quality leads. I'm like, okay, well, if we put an application between these two steps, you're going to pay 4 times more sometimes. And they're like, oh, like, yeah, if you just get me the leads, I'll close them. That's like their favorite quote. And I'm like, yeah, those people can't close shit. So it's like, dude, it's crazy. Like whenever someone gets on the phone with us,
you like hear certain things, you're like, okay.
Like, yeah, this person's a red flag. Like, dude, we have like triggers on sales calls where we'll hear that, and then I'll tell the guys like, do not sell them.
Yeah.
Like if anybody says that to us, I'm like, nah, that guy can't close an open door. So no shot.
So that's a question I have is, do you have certain clients? Because anything done for you is usually much harder, right? Consulting is one thing because it's like, hey, here's the advice, take it or leave it, right? So it's not so much pressure on the fulfillment, but with done for you, it's a lot more. So do you have certain clients, or do you have certain things you tell your sales team? It's like, hey, if they're in this range or this bracket, like absolutely not, or this offer, absolutely not. Do you have stuff like that?
I mean, the biggest triggers for us are if they are making less than like $5K a month and haven't ran ads before. I'm like, no, just throw them to a DIY. Also, if they ask a lot of questions, like, how soon should my ads be launched? Or like, how fast will I get results? Those are 2 questions right off the rip where we're just like, nope, you're not going to DFY because you're going to be a headache. And then also if people talk on the sales call about certain, like, oh, I've worked with 4 or 5 agencies. I'm like, dude, you're just not patient enough, and you don't want to like work with someone, have a relationship.
Right.
So like, I don't want to sign you on either.
Right.
So there's like certain triggers that they know through training and whatnot, but yeah.
Yeah. Would you say most people who come to work in the agency, like, are they looking for more long-term, or are they looking to learn how to do it and eventually do it on their own? I mean, obviously there's a mix, but like, what do you see? Because like, that's one of the things in the agency space I see that can be tough, is like you get the recurring revenue, but then it's always like hit or miss on how long they stick.
Once they get past 4 months, they'll stay to month 10. That's what we've seen. So like, get them to 4 months and then they'll stay longer. But then we have some cases where we'll get them results in the first like 2 months, and then like they'll be done with their agreement. And then they're like, oh, I could just leave the campaigns on. I don't need you guys anymore. I can go find someone for cheaper and go on Upwork and find a media buyer to just manage it. And I'm like, so that's where we started like ascending them into either like mastermind, or we'll send them into email, or we'll send them in other things to like keep more touch points. But dude, it's so tough because then you tell them that, and then they're like, oh, it's a new thing. I'm already making money. I don't want to mess it up with this extra thing that might hurt me. So yeah, it's just tough. Like the hardest part with the agency is definitely the ascension piece.
Yeah. I mean, something that I found that, I mean, we never really we've had an internal ad agency, I would say. So it's like, we don't ever advertise on the front end, but it's for internal clients. And we looked at it as like, hey, if they're going to go look for someone to run their ads, we might as make that part of like our upsells, right? But I would say the thing we had to do, especially with the consultants, is we had to become more full stack, because if it's just running the ads alone, that's where they don't see as much value. But as soon as it's like, hey, we're going to do this for your funnel, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, I notice a lot of agencies can't handle that, or they don't do it well. So that's been like a big differentiating point for us. What's the main type of funnel you see working right now? And it can be for different like e-com or whatever, but I'm just curious, like, what's the main thing you see working?
Probably shout out to Cole Gordon with the short form funnel. Dude, that thing crushes with setters.
Yeah.
Like when we have just like a simple opt-in page, headline of a good offer, goes to an opt-in, setter calls, and then they go to the VSL on the next page with an application. That one does really, really well.
Interesting.
I just haven't seen much failure rate with that.
Do you think it's more based on the offer or the actual funnel? So meaning like, are you just running a really good offer to the short form funnel?
Yeah, I think it's about the offer piece, but the funnel makes it short form to where people can actually congest it faster. Like, I mean, there's landing pages where, years ago, man, like long sales letters crushed. And now I feel like they're just like not having as high of a stick rate. People are just like, oh, just tell me what I'm getting. And they just want to get straight to the point. And I think people appreciate that a lot more now than ever.
Yeah, I've actually one of my old clients. He's doing $2-3 million a month with a fitness offer. He runs it straight to an application page with the type form. I mean, there's literally not even an opt-in, which is super. Yeah, I mean, he's losing all those leads, but he just gets really high quality. Yeah, and he's super aggressive. He's super aggressive, but I would agree for the most part. That's the most simplistic thing I've seen.
I think I might know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it's probably John.
I run his stuff. Superhuman.
Yeah.
I'm like, huh.
Yeah. So like he's like back in the day, and then he's done really well and crushed it. And like even when I see that, his angle is really funny too because he's just super aggressive.
Afraid to take your shirt off at the pool. I love it.
Yeah. The one I've seen interesting. This might be interesting for you. One I've seen that's worked really well, and it was dependent on the offer. I think something that was good for me. And you've probably seen this in agencies too. Having an agency is. You'll do the same thing for, let's say, 5 different offers, and then one of them just does much better. And that was really insightful for me. Hormozi's book came out and stuff like that, but it was mostly like when I saw that and I said, why is this doing better? It was just, the offer. Yeah. One of the things that we've seen work really well for some done for you offers is they'll run an ad to a free group. So maybe it's school or go high level, whatever. Then they have a upsell to like they're recurring. And then from there they upsell to the one-to-one. So one of my offers, it's a portfolio company. They run an ad to a free group on curriculum for day trading. Then they go to a 97 monthly, which is basically trading alerts. And then they go to a one-to-one 25K, like done for you bot. And it absolutely slaughters. Like, and now part of it, I think, is the offer because it allows anyone with, a hand to, it's like, hey, click this and that's it, right? And so it's much easier, and that's what I've noticed. But it was so interesting to see that, like, I've just had so many different things I've done and so many different clients, I can see them do similar things and then just watch how, because it offers so much better, it just converts at a much higher rate. Or they might even get higher pickups when the setters call or better show rates or whatever. It's just, that's always been interesting to me.
I love that.
But anyways, that's something maybe you could try. Like we're noticing, at least I would say in the coaching space, there's a lot less trust right now. Than ever before. And so going to your point, I think it's like you either have to do something lower price where you build trust first and then ascend them, or you got to get straight to the point, kind of with like the short form funnel, what you were talking about. I've seen you do those in-person events. Mm-hmm. I hate in-person events, by the way. I absolutely hate them because it's so much work. What's the main reason you're doing that?
So the biggest thing that we saw with the events was like the reach and the amount of retargeting. So like we have a lot of people who come to us on high ticket and buy because they either sat at an event, didn't buy at the event,
interesting,
or they saw the ads for the event and they were like, oh yeah, I just didn't get the chance to go, wherever it looks like. We did one city a week for like 27 weeks.
I saw that, bro. I saw you had even this year, you had an itinerary up until, and then you took a break. Like I think you had like a 3 or 4 month break and you have one coming up, but it was, I think I saw that.
It was just a lot for brand and reach. And like, to be honest, it wasn't like an intrinsic ROI. Like we made money on the events. Like we did over 2 million just on the events, but like the more value was actually getting the people in person who wanted me to like partner and then get equity.
Interesting.
Because they wanted to see you in person before they decided to have any conversation like that because they're skeptical of the online space.
So is that one of the main drivers in terms of like your profit and revenue is equity positions?
Yeah, like an equity position or because the way that I did the model was I couldn't stand in the like once I started getting some type of traction and getting a name, people would always ask me, say, oh, let's get on a call and let's talk about how you can. I was like, dude, I'm tired of taking all these calls and they go nowhere. So I started doing a $50K initiation fee. And I'm like, okay, if you want to give me equity, then pay me 50 grand first and then we'll talk about it. And those are the people who are actually serious.
But why would I pay you 50K to give equity? Like where's their thought process in that? Like
they're just buying the expertise. I've gotten 4 people to do it already.
Wow.
And they pay the 50K and then they're like, okay, you can get either 5 and there's like a structure that I do. So it's 5, 10, 15%, but I can't go over 15%.
Do you have a minimum threshold? Meaning your company has to be at least this level for me to take equity, or is it just you'll take anything?
Yeah, it's got to be 100K a month or more.
So something I noticed in any equity positions I've taken is in the beginning I was just taking everyone, and then I soon realized I said if the CEO is not a good fit, it doesn't usually work, because what ends up happening is they want you to run the company, but I'm like, it doesn't make sense for me to run your company for this amount of equity. Like, I'm here to like consult and maybe like, for example, run the ads or hire or train.
I also wanted to see their leadership team.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, like, if we're going to scale this thing, I want to see like who's your CMO, who's CFO, like, are they even like, do they have a brain cell? Like, so yeah, that was really.
Yeah. I think for me, two things I've noticed is like, it has to be, the CEO is more important than the offer, but you really want both.
Yeah.
And having fewer, better portfolio companies or equity positions is better than more. Because like I had a few where it'd be like, okay, let's say I have 30% and they're just not really showing up. They don't want to work a lot, because I think they think like, oh, Tanner's going to build it. And I'm like, I mean, dude, like you're still building it. Like the benefit for me is like, I'm getting a little bit for a little bit of work. I'm not doing 100% of the work. So that's interesting to hear.
Also, I look at companies like there was one 2 days ago, and I get on a call with him, and he's a big player in the space. He's like, yeah, we have an email list of 400,000 people, but we don't email them. And I'm like, bro, this is gonna be the stupidest amount of money.
Yeah, like you send one email and boom.
Yeah, and he's like, nah, dude, we just never touched it. We never nurture them. We just run our events.
It's like, why are you even collect the fucking email then?
Dude, I was like, bro, we put that in active campaign. Just give me like 30 days. Just give me 30 days.
Yeah, you're looking for just low leverage things you can do. Have you seen any technology or like other trends in the industry that's like, or I should say, let me rephrase that. Have you seen technology or trends impact the industry like in recent years, or like you say even last year?
This is gonna be an interesting take. I think that the whole chat GPT angle, like it's making people dumber. And it's like, I mean, it's good for some automations and flows and other like pieces of copy, but I think it makes people dumber, and it's actually making the competition like less. Like I made more money since ChatGPT came out because people just got stupider.
Well, yeah, because they stopped thinking. It's almost like instead of trying to think through a problem, they'll just immediately go there. To be frank, I don't think I've used it more than twice. And usually it's just if I'm trying to come up with maybe more ideas. So I'll go there and I'm like, hey, give me to kind of like help me think of stuff to be creative. But I think that's the issue is if you're trying to use that to take out all your creativity, it makes sense because if you're not using the muscle, you lose it. So I kind of, it's probably like your brain. It's like you're not using your brain. You're just using ChatGPT. You get dumber. I mean, it makes sense to me. So I buy that.
And then also like OpenSend. I don't know if you know what that is.
What is that?
Oh, geez, dude. OpenSend is this software that if you send traffic to your website, which I don't know, how much you spend a day on Facebook right now?
We spend as high as 500,000. We're not spending as much now. I was like, dude, to be frank, we actually spend most of it on Instagram now. We don't spend hardly any on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen that. We used to do almost like $500,000 a month on Facebook, but now we almost do none on Facebook and everything's on Instagram. Like, have you seen that?
I've been getting a lot on Facebook.
That's so interesting.
Damn.
Yeah, it's weird.
Instagram gets me lifestyle people.
That's super interesting. We've had almost the opposite where it's just like, and it's not like we couldn't get leads or sales. It's just apples to apples. We're like, okay, we're spending way more on Facebook than IG. It's interesting. I don't know.
Crazy. Yeah, but OpenSend will basically, like when you send traffic to a landing page, it's literally, it pulls their email and information, even if they don't opt in.
But has that been beneficial for you? Because I know exactly what you're talking about. In the past, what I've noticed is that if you're getting, let's say you get their info and you email them, but they don't have any context, so it's not quite as effective. Like, what do you use it for? Or do you use it for lookalikes or what?
I only use it for browse abandonment sequence. That's it.
Interesting.
So if they go, it's like a retargeting email. I don't use it for that like cold.
Ooh, that actually smart. So it's almost before you don't even have to do a 2-step page. They can come to the page. Maybe they'll click a button to go to the cart, but it's not a 2-step order form is what I mean. Yeah.
So I'll just pull their info and then I just do browse abandon or abandon cart, and it does really well.
That's super.
But like for cold email, like blasts, you're just burning through domains, and to be honest, it's just like not what I want to manage. So yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, and it's a massive numbers game. And I also think the offer has to be like a very no-brainer offer. Like even when Mosey was doing gym launch, I mean, they were basically almost like, hey, we'll do your stuff for free and pay us if it works. But their model was so perfect to make it work. Like they could just flood gyms with $30,000 of revenue in a month. Yeah. What are some of the key skills or knowledge that you think is most important to be successful in your industry?
I would say being a really good copywriter. It's very underrated in my space. Like people just depend on like short form, get like one headline, etc. But like they don't really think about the avatar in mind. So like I came from the copywriting webinar world, VSL world, and that helped me become a better media buyer. And then from there, like become a better leader. So it was like, if you don't understand good copy and how to tell stories and infatuations and like mechanisms, then it's kind of hard for you to always have this reinventing wheel of creative. Because I feel like right now, more than ever, like you need to focus a lot on the creative when you're spending a ton of money on ads.
Yeah.
So being able to tell the right story, have the right hooks, and just all that, like that helped me out a ton.
What would you say if someone has a landing page and it doesn't convert? Usually my advice would be change out the headline. Would you have different advice from that, or would you still put most of the focus around the headline, or you'd be like, hey, you need to look at the whole page holistically? Or
I would first look at like what is being said on the front end, because some people say something on the front end of the ad and then they go to the landing page and it's something completely different. And I'm like, like congruency's off, okay. And then people will say, oh, well, the leads don't have that much money. Okay, well, then maybe say something in the beginning of the ad. Like, hey, if you're a coach or consultant making $10K a month, or do you have at least 20K saved up? If you do, here's my offer, or whatever it looks like. That's going to pre-qualify their actual investment capability. And then from there, I'll look at the like the headline, because the shorter the headline, the better the conversion rate. Yeah, hands down.
Interesting. As long as shorter the headline.
Shorter the headline, and then the sub-headline just gets rid of their biggest objection.
Interesting.
Wow. So it's like, you know, like achieve X result in X days using X without having this and this and this. And that usually works the best. When I used to have longer headlines, the only reason why longer headlines worked maybe 2-3 years ago was when there were long form sales letters where you would tell this like massive story.
Yeah. I think like a long sales letter is good for low ticket. So there's no sales call, but if you're pushing to a sales call, I usually find it's like, just, we want to get as many applications in as possible typically. Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. That seems similar to the train of thought I had. Who would you say is the most influential person in the early stages of your career? Or in general?
Like, when I first started, dude, it was Ty.
Ty Lopez?
Yeah, dude. Like, the SMA course was actually pretty bomb.
Yeah.
Like, it was good. And people hated on him for it. And I was like, dude, you didn't actually implement anything. That's why you hated it. So it was Ty. And then right now, it's definitely Brandon Dawson for sure.
Interesting. Why? I'm curious. Why would you say Brandon Dawson? Because when I think of Brandon Dawson, I just think of like HVAC. Yeah. Right? Because he rolled up a company and sold it for like 80 million EBITDA or whatever it was. It's nuts. Yeah.
His way of looking at systems and people is like, dude, it's just so like, he breaks it down to a science.
Really?
And like,
does he know marketing? I don't get that vibe. I mean, I only spent a little time with him.
He doesn't know much about marketing. He just knows that if you have a business that's doing anywhere from like 3 to 7 million, how to take it to 25 to 50. Yeah. And it's just like, the way that he came into our business and like fixed the team and the hierarchy and the culture and like all these things, dude, it was like insane.
Interesting.
And it helped out a ton.
My interaction with him, I just remember they're like, yeah, this guy sold a business for like 80x EBITDA. And I think it was something around, I don't know the whole story, but I think it was something around, they just bought every single competitor. So it was like this massive conglomerate and just, and there's like, yeah, so basically there's no one to compete against you. So you'll get all the business or something like that. And he sold it for like 80x or something ridiculous. Yeah. Seems like a good guy, seems smart. I just, you know, it's like when you meet different people, it's like you'll see different skill sets. And so, he obviously seems to have a skill set. It's just like I wouldn't think of him as like a marketer for sure. I mean, definitely more of like a systems or like
Grant's
operator.
More of the marketer,
right? Yeah. I mean, Grant just that's actually a great play for Grant because he just goes around Cardone. He just goes around and basically finds good operators, and then he's like, "Hey, I'll do some posts for you and stuff," and they're like, "Okay," takes a big cut. So it's pretty smart. What would you say are some of the habits or practices that you found to be the most helpful for either personal or your professional growth? Any specific habits you have? Like, Brandon Carter has 10 espresso shots a day. That's one of his habits. I actually worry he's going to die from it.
Some of my biggest habits that have helped is I take a morning drive and I take a night drive.
Interesting.
And it lets me like have a better thought process from beginning of the day to end. I feel like so many people go so hard at work and then like they try to do shit after work.
Yeah.
They're either like doing a lot of social activities
You need time
or
to
they're
think.
going out, and it's like I just need time to think. And that's one of my first mentors always told me that. And he was like, yeah, dude, like the best ideas you're going to get is when you're sitting there alone and you don't have any distractions.
Of course.
And you're just thinking, like either take a walk or whatever the case may be. 2 was whatever your favorite hobby was from your childhood, make sure that you surround yourself with it when you're older because you always want to talk to your inner child. That was definitely important for me. So like that was basketball. So I always made sure like wherever I lived, my biggest non-negotiable was like I need to have a basketball court. So I made sure I did that. And then 3 was the power of saying no. Like there's so many things that I say no to now, and I'm just like so happy about it. Like it's just so great. Like I used to, because like dude, like everybody started from zero. Like I used to always say yes to everything.
Right.
And I was like, all right, like yeah, I'll get on that call, and yes, I'll do this, and yeah, like. But dude, it's so great to say no because you know that you have like the inner peace to be okay with it. But we were so worried about saying no in the beginning because we didn't want people to make us like we didn't want people to look at us bad.
Sure.
Or be like, oh, like I can't depend on that person, or that person has a bad reputation, or whatever it looks like. Like now I say no to a lot of shit, and I'm so thankful.
Yeah, I think one of the things I had to learn is, you know, as you make more money, I think that's part of the trade-off is you're saying, hey, you know, let's say the number's 500,000 a month and all these people are asking you to do stuff. It's like, dude, I'm cool to make 400,000 and not do those things. You know what I mean? I even think I saw the other day Mosey had some post and he said that someone asked him to do a podcast and he's like, no. And the guy's like, asked again. He's like, I don't know if you saw this, but he's like, yeah, you see this? Like, this is my day and it's like nothing's scheduled. I want to keep it that way. And I was like,
saw that.
And the way he even explained is like, I didn't mean anything rude by it, but I actually thought that was hilarious where he's like, yeah, like I don't want to schedule anything in. And I think that's super important to your point because, you know, if you're always going, I think there's seasons for business, but there's a very different mindset when you're trying to be creative versus like grinding stuff out. Even when I'm trying to create content, it's very different mindset because you're sitting there, okay, you're thinking through like, what's the hook going to be? What's this? What's that? Or maybe like strategically what you're going to do with your next businesses. So I think that is a really good superpower. What's your long-term goal? And let me give some context for this. Something that I got to is there, you know, I've been mostly consulting. Right? I wouldn't really say I'm an agency consulting. And we got close to around 2 million a month at one point. Not as big now. But when we couldn't break past it, I thought something was wrong with me. And over time, maybe there is, but over time, my thought process has been more, it's just a more difficult vehicle. You saw Sam Evans pivot, you saw Mosey pivot, you saw Becker pivot, you see people pivot. And so I guess I'm curious with you, you have this big agency, but is that a means to an end? Do you see yourself doing it forever? Do you eventually see maybe taking your skill set and going into what I would consider easier vehicles or businesses where there's that upside? Because a lot of the interviews I've had with billionaires, 3 key things I saw was they usually had internet marketing background. They had a product or service that was like basically 0 to no fulfillment, right? Which is kind of opposite of what you and me do. And then I think the third thing was, what was the third thing that I always noticed? I can't remember the third one, but those were like 2 main things. So anyways, going back to the question is what's kind of your end game with where you're at? Like, do you want to do it forever? Are you going to take these skills eventually and pivot into something else? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to go the acquisition route for sure, using the skill sets. Because yeah, it is like, dude, there's only so far I can take an agency and I'm being conservative. I don't think that I'll ever hit like 2-3 million a month with an agency.
I'll be frank with you. In our industry too, a lot of people bullshit numbers. The other thing is it's too difficult, meaning like I look at Sam Evans, and Sam Evans was doing close to 2 million a month before he pivoted. And like he had massive, like everyone's like, oh, I know Sam Evans. He had a good brand. He had a pretty big organic reach. I also look at Iman Godzi the same way, where Iman, the rules don't apply to him because he's like, he has 5 million subs on YouTube. You know, he gets a video, gets like those people can get away with it. But really, I usually think that the businesses I've seen do better than that, which are more anomalies, they're usually maybe BizOp or something of that nature. Like it's very difficult to get past that point. And then I started realizing, man, I'm putting in 100% more effort for 10% more results. And then you start realizing like it doesn't make sense. So I do think like the three things I've seen in terms of billionaires, typically it's either tech, right? So you got, and that's pretty, the reason tech's so great is it scales as soon as it works. Like everyone's getting the same result, right? So Uber's not a good example from the standpoint of profit. They've never actually made a profit, but like, I got Uber Eats today and it always shows up the same way. It's perfect. Agency work doesn't work that way based on what we said. Like the clients have to do some work. And so there's the issue with that. You got private equity, which is obviously you just buy companies, roll them up. I think Mosey's probably going to be a billionaire in like 2 years, bro. I mean, it's our last combo, something like that. He's a beast. Leo's a beast too, to be honest. And then the third one was private equity, hedge funds. And hedge funds make sense too because everyone gets the same result. So I think what was interesting for me is once I got my business there, and then Mosey's book came out, and then I interviewed those billionaires. I was like, that's what they mean by a better offer. Is it's not necessarily that like what you're selling isn't good. It's just that a better offer is that any idiot can get the same result as the best person, right? And that's kind of more what I look at now is where can the dumbest fucker, right, get the same result as a smart one? And like you can't do that in consulting. You can't do it in agency work because if you get a guy who's a 10, those are the clients you want. And there's a reason why, because they work harder, they're smarter, they put in more time, they ask more questions. And then the ones down here, they don't do that. And so anyways, that's at least my take. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
No, I completely agree. And I think it comes down to the simple facet of that we are selling behavioral change. We have to get people to get out of their skin and all their traumas and all the shit that they don't believe in or do believe in. And there's just a lot of friction with human nature and all that. So yeah, definitely tough.
Sometimes I will look at someone's offer and they're doing everything that I think they should be doing, but for some reason they just don't get the same ROI as someone else with a similar offer. Do you ever see that? And if so, why do you think that is? Sometimes I just think I don't know if it's just the way they look, right? So like they don't get the type of, meaning let's say I have someone who's, just hypothetically, they're Asian, another person's white. And because this person's Asian, there's less Asians with that offer. Maybe they pull more of them in or something. Like, what is your take on that? Because sometimes I will be like, they're following up, they're texting everyone, they're emailing everyone, their ads seem good, their landing page is good, and they just never get the same ROI as another client with a similar offer.
The biggest thing I look for with that is I actually look at two facets. One is maybe they're just not telling me something. Like maybe they're just not. Like, for example, some clients who don't get results, I'm like, okay, send us recordings of your sales calls. And they're like, oh, I don't record them. I'm like, that's a shit show. And then the second is their organic presence.
Yeah.
I've seen that business owners that have like a decent organic presence to take care of any objections before a sale helps out way more than someone who has no presence at all. It's kind of hard to be a faceless coach.
Right.
It's like, it's just tougher that way. So I look at their Instagram, I'm like, hey, you haven't posted in 3 months. I wouldn't buy from you either. Like, you look sketchy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my favorite clients make a ton of money organically because it just pads everything. So the other day I had a conversation with someone. They're like, hey, I do $150,000 a month. They got 1 million subs on YouTube. I'm like, you could be easily doing $1 million a month. And they're like, how do you figure? I'm like, well, if I get $150,000 a month just to hit baseline, like that's at least probably $500,000 right there, just doing that, but they don't see it that way or they don't understand it. And so I would agree with you on that point where they need to have a good organic audience. But yeah, sometimes it's interesting to me to see, you'll see a client who has a similar offer and it almost like inferior marketing and skill, but they're beating someone else who almost seems like they're doing it better. I've always wondered, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if it's just like the demographic or something of that nature, but
yeah, there's like also people who do the killer of comparison. Like they're like, oh, like look at this company, they're doing 20 million a year. I'm like, bro, they got seed funding and they spent millions on
and comparing
brand
doesn't
reach
help you anyways. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh, this guy's doing more. It's like, okay, cool. It doesn't help you, because I get in that mindset too. No matter how good you do, there's always someone doing better. So I think it's better to look at, okay, maybe why are they doing better and take those lessons, but to compare, you never know what's going on under the hood either. I mean, seeing what's like something external outside perspective is never usually the internal perspective when you're actually working with someone. So that's an interesting take. Okay, here's an interesting question. So I've seen a few times where it almost seems like you seem to thrive on conflict. I don't know if that's accurate.
I knew
but
this
like,
was coming.
Yeah, but like there's even a post I saw in your IG bio where you're like, it's kind of like you put a little jab at the end and it said something like, I wrote it down. It said, P.S. Love me or hate me, I run the space. And then I've seen a couple times where, so like, I'm just curious, like, do you thrive on that, or does it just seem to happen, or is it more just, I never back down attitude, or like, what's your take on that?
Dude, I'm a New Yorker, man. You know,
Okay, say how it is.
It's just how it is. Also, it's like, if they're not confident, then no one's going to believe in you.
Sure.
I don't know, dude. It's just funny.
Yeah.
I just think it's hilarious because if I say it, people are like, dude, like, they just like a straight shooter. At least people that buy from agencies, they like the no bullshit, straight up approach.
Right.
So I was just like, all right, you know what? Like, this is just how I feel about it. Yeah.
No. I mean, I think that's commendable. It's something I think when I look at the people I respect the most, usually it's not that I agree with them. It's that it's almost their unwavering confidence in the way that they carry themselves. Right. So, you know, hey, dude, the sky's green. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, bro. I'm like 100% positive. I'm like, okay, you know? And so it's not always that I agree, but I like that. I think for me, and the reason I asked the question is, I think over the years, like I can go that direction, but I think over the years, like I don't like any extra, I don't know what you call it, like weight or like drama. And so I'm curious, like, do you thrive on it? Or you're just like, oh, it's just kind of like, it just happened in that scenario? Or do you more kind of like lean into it where you're like, all right, like, yeah, like,
I mean, I'll lead into it because it just gets more eyeballs and like I deflect the drama. Like the amount of shit I get in my comment section, I think it's hilarious because it just builds engagement. Like,
it's true. It's true.
I don't answer none of the comments and I just look at them and I laugh or I'll screenshot them and post them. Yeah. But I feel like the biggest thing I learned from Grant, dude, is like, if you're not getting hate, it's like,
not doing anything. You're not trying sometimes.
But dude, it's a thing where sometimes I don't like the drama because some people like will take it too far.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It definitely gets too far for a lot of stuff. But that's why I was curious because I agree. I think you definitely shouldn't be afraid to be yourself, but you know, so there's some people I'll meet and I think they either thrive on it. Some people are just like, no, I mean, I just say like what I think. So I just want to kind of get your perspective on that. What are maybe 3 of the biggest mistakes you think you've made? So if you could go back in time, you talk to your younger self, or someone who's listening is like, what should I do to avoid or get to the, you know, point A to B faster? Like, what would you have changed or done differently?
Number one is I waited way too long in the beginning to run ads for my own business. And I was just so like in the game of just client fulfillment, referrals. And like, I enjoyed having 95% profits. Like that was my thing. And I waited too long. 2 is just because you're doing more doesn't mean you're going to make more. It means that you're just going to stress yourself out way more. I thought that like making more money came down to taking on more obligations. I was under this weird connotation because I saw all this stuff on social. I was like, oh, this guy's got this, you got Bo, and I was like, all right, I'll just take on more shit. I'll make more money. And I was like, actually, that made me miserable. So that was 2. And then number 3 is I had to fix like inner problems before getting into a relationship. Cause now I've been single for 2 years. I got in a relationship because I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, like, yeah, like she'll help me, you know, have more emotional support. And then I realized like, dude, I'm not even ready for that. And that was one thing I jumped into because once I got in a relationship, then I was thinking about having her move in with me. And then like we got a dog and then dude, shit went south. Like my dog broke her leg and then she stole my dog. I fixed it. Like, dude, all this shit went down.
Your dog's a fucking animal, bro.
Dude.
Fucking just going up and biting people's legs off or something.
So
did she try to ride the dog and the dog like, you know, she fell over? Like what, how did this happen exactly?
Dude, we went out for dinner and we came back and my dog's leg was hanging off. It was disgusting. She broke her femur.
Oh, she broke the dog's leg.
No. My dog broke its own leg.
Oh my gosh. I thought I apologize. I thought you said the dog broke your girl's leg. And I was like, your dog's fucking crazy. I was like, we gotta put that thing down. I'm glad we cleared that up. I was super worried for a second about your girl.
So like, dude, we went out for dinner. We came back and all we heard was like her crying. Man. And I was like, wait, is that her leg? And it was just like hanging off her body. It was disgusting, bro. I almost, you know what? Like, dude, I was like, oh shit, I did not see that. So yeah, dude, it was just like, and then we took her to the hospital. I didn't realize how much that was going to be. Dropped 20 grand on a freaking femur surgery. And then right after that, 2 weeks after, dude, I was at home and I was just like, dude, I just took on so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I got her, new apartment, dog, 2 cars. Like, this is just, dude, fuck this. So then, yeah, dude, like she wound up taking the dog and then she left.
Did you? Well, I guess let's dial this back a bit. Like, and peel this back. What was going on? Like, were you having success and you felt like the next steps was like, all right, get cars, like get a girlfriend? Like, is that kind of what you felt, or what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, I just did those things because I got bored. Like, I feel like boredom, and that would be a third tip for sure, is like when you get bored, you do dumb shit.
Yeah, because you have too much time on your hands,
yeah.
right?
Like when I was, and that's why I still do a little bit of one-on-one with people, because I realized, like, if I'm bored, I'm going to just buy dumb shit or go on vacations or stay at a hotel that I shouldn't really be spending that much money on. And I just get, like, really bored. So I always like to stay busy. But, like, with the relationship piece, like, I just wasn't prepared.
Interesting.
Like, I saw my parents, and, like, my parents
when you say prepared, like, what do you mean when you say that? Like, so you weren't prepared for what part, or what happened? Like, as much as you're comfortable with, like, what happened?
No, of course. Yeah, I just think that I was really lonely. Like, I was just too busy working, and anybody on my team only came to me for money and business advice.
Yeah.
No one ever came to me and was like, yo, Wojo, like,
no, it's lonely at the top.
How are you?
No, because the thing is, I think they assume, I say this a lot of time to some of my rich friends. I check in on them and I say, hey, bro, I'm just checking on how you're doing, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, and he's like, XYZ, I'm good. And I'm like, cool. It just, sometimes rich people don't get checked on.
Yeah.
Because, it makes sense. Like, you would assume, like, I'm not like, oh, fuck, I hope Bill Gates is having a good day. You're just like, he's probably fine, right? And so I think the thing is, you carry a lot of responsibility, and then you're so used to taking care of others. Because I've definitely said that before, where I've been like, man, like, no, who the fuck's worried about me? Versus,
dude, man, it's tough, dude.
Yeah, because and so that makes sense. Have you read the book Mastery of Love?
No.
You should. So I'll give you just a quick, there's 3 points. It's one of the, I would say it's like top 3 books I've ever read. And this book really helped me because I was making relationship decisions, and there were 3 main points in the book that, I just love when they give good analogies because it just makes the concept easy. So the first point was, they were talking about relationships, and they were saying, a lot of people go into a relationship and they try to change people, but they go, well, look, if you go to a shelter or you're going to buy a dog, whatever, and you want a black dog, you don't look at the brown dog and go, oh, the fuck's wrong with that? Let's fucking make it black. Like, you're just like, nice dog, but I prefer this one. So I think that was the first thing, where when people have conflict, a lot of times they start trying to change the other person. But the point was, if you love someone, you just love them as they are. It doesn't mean you have to, like, marry them or something. You're just like, yeah, like, that's cool, right? So I thought that was a cool point. The second point that I really liked was, it talked about love in general. And so to your point, what happened, this may be helpful for you, I don't know, but like, they had a point in the book. They said, look, if you woke up every day and you could order any food you wanted, and then someone came to your door, and like, let's say I knocked on your door and said, hey, Jason, I'm going to give you this pizza if you do these things. You'd be like, I'm good, bro. Like, I mean, do you want some of my food? Like, I got way more than you. And so I thought the interesting point is that a lot of times, and this may have been what happened too, I don't know, but I know for what I've experienced is a lot of times we don't necessarily love ourselves, or maybe we're not comfortable with where we're at or something like that. And so we look for external validation, someone else, they give us that pizza, quote unquote, and then we don't want to lose it. Because it's better than, because we're basically starving because we don't love ourselves. So you'll have to read the book to get more context, but I thought that was a great point. And then the third point was going back to, it kind of goes back to that first point, but being okay with who you are. Because if you're okay with who you are, then, and you love yourself, you're basically just being who you are. And then if someone comes along who matches you, you go in life together. But if they don't, you're okay with it. And I realized a lot of my problems was coming from, number one, trying to change the other person. Like, when something would go wrong, I'd be like, look, like, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to go. It's okay to have standards, but the thing I think I missed was, you're not trying to get that person to change. You just find someone who's already like that.
Yeah.
Like a dog.
And it was hard for me. It's kind of like the whole, like, don't try to turn a C player into an A player in your business. Just buy A players. Yeah. And
same concept.
Yeah, like, and I just couldn't separate the two. Yeah. Like, I was bad at that. Yeah. And I admit that. Like, I was bad at separating business and personal.
Yeah.
Like I would be out and I was so hungry in the beginning of my journey where I was just like with her, but not really with her.
Yeah.
Like
and,
I was
and
like
probably
in
hurt
my
the relationship.
DMs and closing
Right.
a deal, and then she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh," I was like, "Oh shit, sorry." Like,
Yeah. So I mean, a couple lessons I had to learn, because I'm definitely not perfect, but a couple lessons is like, I think first to be in the relationship, you set the standard. I like to work a lot, so if I'm with someone, that's number one. They have to be okay with that. Number two is then you have like a cutoff time. So let's say for me it's 7:00 and I go to bed, let's say 8:30. Like I'm like, that's your time, an hour and a half. Now some people can argue, well, it should be more, it should be less, it should be whatever. But to me, I'm like, if it's it's like a calendar. It's like at 7, that's your time. And I've noticed for me, that's been a lot more beneficial because they can expect it, right? And they can count on it. And then the third one is just being okay with where I'm at. I think I don't know how you were raised, but I was raised very religious. So I don't think there's anything intentional on my parents, and it's definitely not my parents' fault, but there can be a lot of guilt and shame around certain things, right? You don't do this, you're going to hell. You don't do that, you're in trouble. You don't do this, you're a bad person. And so I think there were some things that maybe I didn't want to do, but I did out of like that guilt and shame. And then what happens is you're in a relationship, and so you feel that, well, this is what people say I should do. Like I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do this, but you don't really want to. And so what starts happening is you're doing stuff out of fear and obligation, not because that's what you want to do. And those relationships usually never work because it's like, hey, Jason, you're going to like, you don't want to do stuff ultimately that you don't want to do. And so that's what I've seen a lot in relationships. That's why I think a lot of relationships have issues. At least when I've looked at mine, is because I'm trying to force myself to do shit that I'm not comfortable with. But the reason I don't say that is because I'm more scared of losing that person than being alone. And the reason is because I'm not cool with who I am. And like, it goes back to that pizza analogy. It's like if you were cool with who you are, you're just like, bro, I'm the fucking man. If you want to be in my life, cool. If you don't, no worries. And the people I respect the most, that's the vibe they have. And I'm like, that's probably what it is. They just are cool with who they are. Like, yeah. Like, so for example, you bring up Andrew Tate, very controversial guy. I don't know if I agree with everything he says, but that dude thinks like you should have 65 wives. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if I agree with that, but like, he's just so confident that that's the right way to do it. Or Hermosi, like, he's very confident that the way he's living his life is correct. You know, there's probably other people I could think of, but like Cardone, I think very similar. He's been nice to me too. I had a great experience with him. He just seems very sure of how he's living his life. And I think that's what I admire, because when you're cool with who you are and how you're living, then you don't really need that other external validation. And I think, at least for me, that's where the rubbers hit the road. So I don't know, take that for what it's worth. But
yeah, no, dude, I appreciate it. Yeah, it definitely makes sense.
Read that book. The author of that book, he's got a lot of other great books too. And so like I'm going on a little bit of a binge. Very short books, like it'll take you 2 hours. But that book's really helped me, especially when I was trying to make tough decisions, because I just sat there and I thought all the bad decisions I made are the things that have been tough for me. I'm doing out of fear and obligation because I'm afraid of either what someone else will think or what that person will do. But then, you know, that's not the right choice. Yeah. Right. And even if like maybe, I think even if maybe, you know, it's the right choice, if you're not ready to do that, that also can make it a wrong choice. Right. Yeah. So if like if deep down in your heart, you're like, hey, I probably should want to have kids and get married, but I don't, I think it's worse for you to try to force yourself into that than you just wait until it's like, I really want that now. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, but like we used to have conflicts around, like she liked country concerts and I was like, I don't like it. But I would go because I felt bad. And then I realized how much I hated it. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, fuck, I'd rather be like at home and
doing nothing.
Something.
Yeah,
or
doing nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was just like, oh, like I just don't want to make her feel bad.
I think there's give and take. I think there's give and take where, for example, if you really hate something and that's like, that becomes the non-negotiable. There's some stuff I do, like, I don't really care. Like, put your socks over in this area, then over here. I'm like, all right, like, it's not, I don't care. But I think there are certain things that, to your point, if that bothers you, then it's not bad. It's just, I think people have a hard time saying, like, we're not a fit because it hurts our egos. And that's part of what that book talks about too, is like, it's not, if we can just separate our egos, it's not like, oh my God, Jason Wojo, he's like this, what a piece of shit. It's just like, bro, like, if this is the type of dog you like and he's like that, it's cool. He's still like, it's like a pit bull versus a lab. It's nothing wrong with the pit bull. I just prefer the lab. And I think whenever it's with humans, we just take stuff so emotionally. In fact, last example, that I think you'll like is they use the dog example again. So you come home, the dog wants to play with you and you had a bad day. So the dog, after a few minutes is like, okay. And it goes back to being a dog. What humans do is, let's say you went home and you had a bad day and you're in a bad mood and your girl tries to talk to you and you're like, she's like, well, wait, like, what did I do? Mm-hmm. And so that's also what creates conflict, right? But if you're there's a few lessons in that book I think you should read. I'm probably not expounding on it as well as I should, but anyways, that was helpful for me. Yeah. Plus you're still a young guy. You're in your 20s?
27.
Yeah, dude. So it's like you're still figuring shit out. Yeah. You gotta give yourself a little grace too, because I've done a lot of dumb shit. So I've done a lot of dumb shit, but that's cool. I think as long as you're gracious with yourself, you get older, you learn, and it's easy. I think it's easy to judge yourself sometimes because like you'll get advice from people and you think you should be there or you respect their opinion. But something I learned from one of my mindset coaches, guy's had 600 clients who've paid him $200,000 each.
Is this Brent?
No, this is Steve Hardison.
Oh, okay.
And he had an exercise with me where I was trying to get advice on my relationship. And he's like, all right, so you're going to do this. And then as soon as he said it, he could kind of tell my face was like, he's like, and then he said the other one. And then at the end he goes, but the thing is you're not going to do either because like, it doesn't matter what I say. It's got to be your idea. Right. So I guess the point I was trying to make there is that I've gone 2 areas of my life I've asked for a lot of advice on: relationships and religion. And the more advice I got, the more confused I got because everyone has a different perspective. And so I think something that you have to decide and like work on is just like, what is it you want? And then be okay with what that is. Anyways, but I'll leave it there. I'll put a dagger in it, but hopefully some of that helped. And I would read that book. It's a really great book.
It's called what again?
Mastery of Love.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'd highly recommend it. It'll take you 2 hours, but that's probably one of the most influential books in like my life. So it was really great. Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to business. We went on a little tangent there, entrepreneurs. All right. If someone were trying to start a business from scratch, what advice would you give them? So, and again, all the experience you have now, a key question I get is like, Tanner, how do I make my first 10K? Or Tanner, how do I make my first million? Like, what would your advice be coming from your background? Because you got a pretty unique skill set, like going from copyright and then building an ad agency, which to be honest, probably isn't the easiest things to learn. Like I'd say for the average human, that's like trying to teach them copyright. And I'd be like, oh God, here we go. So what would your advice be if someone's trying to start out?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is like, whatever your skill set is that you're selling, let's say you're a coach, I would just ideate the offer for like at least a week. Like just sit there and really think about what you're offering on the front end because a lot of people give too much on the front end that they can't upsell anything else on the back end. Yeah. Like I would just make something where that you could package your offer in a way that it can give a quick result in a recently good time frame and that it's going to help a massive problem at scale. And then from there, like if you're looking to get it off the ground, you got to take organic seriously because regardless if you run ads, like don't run ads just yet. You kind of want to like prove it organically with like the case study angle where you see people who are like, yeah, I'm looking for 7 people this month who want to achieve X result, yada, yada, yada. I would do that and do it with a group of friends and do a case study group. And then you take the testimonials and then you run ads with it. And that's what I would do. And then like the other piece that people need to understand is that people are more skeptical than ever. So like once you get case studies and testimonials, I would invest in press and like filling up my Google search and all that because so many people we see from our Google search campaigns, like people search my name like 700 times a day or some shit. And I was like, what the hell? And we just retarget them through Google. And I was like, okay, interesting.
That is interesting.
So like, it's this thing where there's so many facets of like learning the skill sets that I've had, but it really comes down to how good the offer is and how you make them feel stupid for saying no.
Yeah. So the funny part about Hermosi's book, and I love Alex, he's amazing, but it was funny. What I thought actually hurt the industry is everyone started making these crazy offers that they couldn't fulfill on. Mm-hmm. All right. And that's why there's so much skepticism now, I feel, because all these people were saying, yeah, this or triple your money back. And they did these crazy offers. So also I would just add in there, make sure it's something you can fucking deliver on. Yeah. Right. Because if you can't, it just ends up being a nightmare. I think.
Dude, it's hard to give like Like even guys like Eddie and them, they don't have crazy guarantee offers. We just sell off brand.
Yeah.
Like I stopped doing the whole like, we'll get 100 leads in 90 days. Like, dude, it's stupid. Like the leads could be crap. People are skeptical.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like,
right.
So
Exactly.
all the ones that are like, or you do not pay, it's like, okay, here's how it actually works.
Yeah, it's like, so basically you have to hit all these conditions, or when they say like, or we'll work with you, and even if they sometimes say like, we'll work with you till you do, I'm like, okay, but think about it this way, which is fine, but if you want to do that, but I also think, okay, if it didn't work in the first 3 months, why do you think it's going to work in the next 6 months? Like, I've never understood that thought process either.
Yeah, it just like attracts the wrong clients. And
correct. And that's the other thing. For me, I just realized the trade-off is not worth it because it's people coming in who already want a plan B, right? Like they don't want to make plan A work. They're like, well, basically I'll try this, but it's cool if it doesn't work. It's like they're already looking for a back door.
Yeah, and we're actually building a campaign right now where I'm doing like a VSL for an ad where we're gonna have like a bunch of people's ads pop up around me and be like, have you seen all these like bullshit guarantees? And that's kind of the angle I'm going for because we've always just
we're going back to the what was that, the thing before, a little bit of conflict.
Yeah.
We thrive in that conflict.
Like, dude, it's like if I don't address the elephant in the room, then they're gonna bring their own expectation. That was a big thing I've seen in my space.
Yeah,
is like bringing it back full circle is people, if they don't have like their own expectation that you're giving them, they're going to make their own.
Correct.
And with the ad space, if you don't tell them what they're going to get, then they're just be like, oh, well, I should get this and this and this and this and this. And like, that's why we don't do guarantees anymore. Yeah. And when people ask that on the phone, I'm like, hey, listen, there's a reason why 80, 100,000 million people run guarantees and we don't. Also, like, dude, people have to watch right now. I don't know, like you're in kind of the same circles that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like the FTC is out for people.
Yeah,
people have to watch.
The thing, FTC, man. My thoughts. I think my view is a little less popular. I think it's two things. So I think first, the FTC could go after anyone. I think like because when I look at FTC compliance, I actually think it's a total waste of time. So I remember in particular, I brought Mosey up a few times, but I just have a lot of convos with him. But in particular, we were talking about FTC and we both had lawyers go through our businesses and all this shit. And at the end, we're like, we kind of were like joking. It's like, so basically we can't do anything. Like if you look at some of the rules the FTC has, you can't say shit. I mean, you can't bring up client results. You have to have 8 years of proof and stuff. So I think realistically, at my opinion, this might be unpopular. I think the FTC, in terms of internet marketing space, they can go pretty much after whoever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
I really believe that. So I think it's almost like whoever they choose, you're fucked.
Yeah.
I really believe that. Like, I feel like here's my opinion, and this is unpopular. Because I know a couple of buddies who've gotten hit by the FTC, so they might disagree with me, but I just believe it's like, look, all the time and effort you're going to put in to try to safeguard yourself against the FTC, it's like, I think ultimately, like, yeah, there's some blatant stuff you shouldn't do, but it's like, I just think some of it is, you're going to spend more money and more time trying to do XYZ. And it's like, if they want to come after you, to be frank, they can hit you from so many angles. Like some of the stuff they say you can't do, I'm like, you can't even advertise. You can't even say, like, I can't say something like, I can't be like, if you say the average client we work with makes 10 grand, they want you to have like 3 years of records to prove that it's actually 10 grand. I'm just thinking like, how many?
No one keeps track of that.
Exactly, right? It's like if the IRS audits you, they go, hey, I need your receipt from 3 years ago at Poppy Steak. I'm like, why would I have, right? So that's at least my opinion. Going back to your point, I agree, but I also think that's why eventually like taking the internet marketing skills and then moving them into what was like, they're considered like less scammy. And the reason they're considered, I don't know why there's that connotation, but it's just because anything where people have to put in effort, where not everyone can get the same result, is going to get that connotation.
Yeah.
And that's just, I just think that's just how it works, to be honest.
They're lazy. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, that's part of it. What would you say is the best way to learn paid advertising? Right. So it could be free, it could be paid. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like you have programs and you do stuff, but like if someone wants to learn paid advertising, what are maybe top platforms or a top way they can learn?
The way that I would start off is like I would get familiar with the terminology first. Mm-hmm. Before you start spending money, I would go learn the terminology. So like, you go watch for YouTube videos, you can get used to like the interface and how ads work. If I were to get into paid ads again, I would go to local businesses and like I would sell services, but only do a setup fee. And then I would just learn by spending other people's money. Like, that's how I learned. I worked at a lot of barbershops, restaurants, home services, and I would just go to them in person. Because, like, dude, I was 18 years old. Like, I was living with my parents.
Yeah.
So I would just go around town and I would just pitch local
That's what I
businesses.
would've done, bro.
And I would just learn on their dime, spending $50 a day on Google, $50 a day on Facebook. Like, those are the budgets that I worked with, which is small now, but like, that's how I learned.
Yeah.
Like the interface and why an ad didn't work and what goes into good creative. Like, I know that sounds, easier said than done. And then the other thing too is like with ads, it's something where like you kind of either have it or you don't. And I say that with
like a marketing mindset or what?
Just like you got to have the right mindset behind ads to give it the patience that it needs. Because some ads, dude, like they just don't do well for a day or two. And then they wind up kicking ass. And then it's like, you need a certain level of patience to run ads. You just do. And I see business owners all the time like, yeah, I tried running my own ads. It never worked. I'm like, okay, how long do you leave them on? They're like, oh, a week. I'm like, dude, you're
spent $400.
Like nothing's gonna help you. Like I can't help you. Then I'm like, hey, you don't need coaching. You need mindset coaching. Like you need to fix your mind first. So yeah, it really comes down to like the way that they frame it before they spend it.
So yeah, and I agree. I think obviously doing is gonna be one of the biggest ways. One of the ways, I don't know if you've ever heard of these sites, and this is why I don't know how people can't learn stuff, but I always think usually having a mentor is better, but I used udemy.com. I don't know if you ever heard of Udemy.
Dude, hell yeah. Those courses are like $9, $10. So
a million courses. They have another one now called Allison. It's just ALISON.com. They're free. And, and now you got all these communities and also I just like, to me, it just, I ultimately feel that if someone really wants to change their life and is willing to learn and just type shit on Google, I mean, it's not even hard. I'm like, course on Facebook ads, free course on Facebook ads. And like, it's crazy all the results that pop up. So I just think also for people, like just start, like stop trying to overthink everything and just start. Last question I have for you, and then we'll get into some other particulars. But in terms of growing an Instagram, I'll use context for me. We use a lot of shout outs back in the day. We don't do as many anymore. Reason being, we haven't found them as effective anymore. They used to be more profitable in terms of I spend this much, I make this much. In your opinion, what is the best way to grow social media? Meaning shout outs, make better content, a mix, press. Like what is your methodology if someone's trying to grow their organic following or their brand? Because, I would say that's actually harder than running ads, in my opinion. Maybe that's only because I'm good at ads, but I think that's actually harder.
Number one thing that we do is celebrity giveaways. So we buy the spots where like someone's giving away like a Tesla.
Right.
And we buy a spot on their following. So that's how I've grown a lot. And then
But what about the quality on those? Like
the quality's not great, but it's mostly there for
is the trade-off
social
there though? Yeah, so social proof. Okay, so
it's mostly there for social proof.
Understood. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And I mean, I still get good story views, so like that's cool. I know the thing you're doing with close friends. I'm about to get that.
Yeah. You should. Yeah. And there's and off camera, there's a million ways to do it. Like what's funny is like someone will tell me they can do it, and then like 3 more people tell me they can do it. I'm like, okay, but yeah, it definitely works. It'll increase your story views. 5 to 6 for the audience. For you guys who are listening, what we're referring to is you can take your followers and add everyone to close friends, and you'll get 5 to 6x story views, which will then increase sales. And there's different people you can find to do that service.
Yeah. So that's cool. And then also like, back to the like controversy, like the way that I get attention sometimes, like that just gets more views and does get more traction, but there's a balance. Like not every post is about that. So yeah,
of course.
But those would be the biggest things. And then like paid ads do put fire on the gas. Yeah. I mean, gas on the fire, excuse me. Cool. So yeah, dude, paid ads helped a ton. I mean, out of the X amount of followers I have, I would probably say like 20% of them are from paid ads, probably. Yeah. And then the rest are just celebrity giveaways and then just like organic.
Yeah, I think for me, as I'm trying to go to the next level, that's like the main thing I'm trying to crack is like kind of almost what Mosey did. Like I remember he had 3,000 subs on YouTube when he posted his book. I think now he has 3 million or something close, right? And so that with his marketing expertise plus that's been super influential. So I think that's cool. Last thing is just obviously for anyone who wants to either get help with their ad services, know more about you. I mean, dude, you're 27 years old, so congrats on the success. I'm 32 now, so it's like fuck, like I'm at the end of my life almost. I'm just kidding, but like it's cool to see like when you're in your 20s and you're still killing it, and you're on the way up. That's like a great time. Where can people find you? More about you, like where's the best places to go, stuff like that.
Yeah. Our main hub is Instagram, so they can just go to @theJasonWojo on Instagram, shoot me a follow. And then I have a new book out. It's called Ads That Sell. They can grab that if they're new to the space. They want to, learn a little bit more about marketing. And then, if they just click the link in my bio, they can book a call, check out case studies, and go from there.
Awesome, man. Thanks for making the trip out here. I appreciate it.
Bro.
All right.